Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the god tier champions for every single role for patch 9.24. Stream will be live over on Twitch as the video goes up today as well, guys, so we're going to be continuing the unranked to diamond series, and there's going to be a link down in the description below if you want to check it out. So if we start things off up in the top lane for this patch, the S tier is going to consist of Jax, Ornn, Darius, Mordekaiser, Kled, and Malphite. So Garen there is going to be dropping out of S tier for this patch down into honorable mentions. I still think he's perfectly viable for this patch. I still think he is one of the stronger top laners, but compared to those champions in the S tier, I do think he's a little bit weaker now after the nerfs he did receive. The Ornn and the Malphite picks there, I think those are two of probably the most underrated, strongest top laners right now for the preseason. Both champions benefited a ton from a lot of indirect changes in preseason, with the Kleptomancy being removed, with true damage from Conquer being removed. The new dragons, especially the new Mountain Dragon, is really good for any tank champion, and especially for the Malphite there because of the way he scales with bonus armor. For this patch, I'd say still the standalone best top laner now after Garen got nerfed is going to be the Mordekaiser. So Mordekaiser still hasn't really received any meaningful nerfs in the past couple patches here. He's a top laner that didn't really get hurt as much as other bruisers because of the fact that you still can go for Leandries, you still got that shred to use against tank champions. So even though a lot of other AD bruisers got a little bit weaker into champs, Mordekaiser really didn't get affected as much. The Darius, the Jax, and the Kled, they're all very good carry top laners, all great bruiser tops right now. The Jax doing really good with that new Sanguine Blade as a second item on him. A second or third item just makes his 1v1 potential very strong, makes his split push potential one of the best in the game. So if you want to play strong dueling top laner right now, I would say that Jax is going to be the #1 pick for 9.24. And then for the honorable mentions there, things like the Quinn, the Heimerdinger, very good laning top lane champions. And in the meta we're in right now, if you can play a top lane champion who can win lane and then get to other parts of the map and start influencing other parts of the map, that's how you're going to win top lane a lot of the time right now. That's how you're going to be able to have an influence on the game. You can't just be really like sitting top lane hoping your team can win, because if you do that and you're just sitting under tower all game, you're just hoping to scale to mid to late game playing like a scaling top lane champion, it's just not really going to work like that, and you're going to be coin flipping a lot of your games. So that's why things like the Shen, really good pick right now. You have the ability to just use your ultimate at level 6, have an impact on the map and help your bot lane or help your mid lane out. Kled there with his ultimate, really good ability to start to look to roam at level 6. The Malphite and the Ornn in the S tier, very good TP flanks, some of the best TP flanks in the game because of their ultimate. So just having the ability to influence the map and having the ability to teleport down bot lane, make a successful gank play is pretty important right now to be successful as a top lane champion. So if we move into the jungle now, a little bit different from the last time we took a look at one of these videos. The jungle meta right now is really heavily focused on junglers who do have very good skirmish in the early game and who can control dragons. So notice the Warwick is jumping up into S tier right now. The Elise, the Olaf are also jumping up into S tier. So these champions do have the ability to 1v1, 2v2 very well throughout the early to mid game. Pretty much all these champions here, maybe besides the Echo, has the ability to take a very early dragon super easily and look to start stacking those for their teams. Now for the honorable mentions there, the Vi, the Kha'Zix, and the Zac are going to be dropping out of S tier down into honorable mentions. I still do think they're very strong picks, which is why they're still honorable mentions, but I do think that the Olaf there, the Elise, and the Warwick, those are the 3 junglers that are replacing them in the S tier. I just think those champions are much better for the current meta, a little bit easier to execute, do have better early game dragon control, and do have the ability to skirmish a little bit better in the early game as well. One champion I was on the fence about at adding into S tier for this patch was the Xin Zhao pick, because similar to the Olaf and the Warwick, he does have very good dragon control, very good 1v1, 2v2 skirmish in the early game. Same with the Jarvan pick there. With the Jarvan, you can look to level 2 gank very early on. You can look to make some pretty creative paths on Jarvan and just get your lane snowballing super early. So with the Xin Zhao and the Jarvan pick there, you can just be very aggressive in the early game, and that can be very good for the current meta. If you still want to play a tank jungler right now, then either the Zac, the Mundo, or the Nunu are very good picks. I don't think they're as strong as they were in previous patches, which is why I'm dropping Zac out of S tier. Mundo was S tier a couple patches ago, but I don't think he's one of the top tier junglers anymore just because of the way that the jungle meta has shifted. So taking a look at the mid lane now, finally we have some sort of shakeup in the S tier. The mid lane meta has been pretty stale over the past couple months here, so we got a couple new picks for this patch. The Nocturne in the mid lane there, very good pick for the preseason. He's doing really good right now with the new Sanguine Blade. You just rush that on him. You have the ability to 1v1 and just burst the champion out whenever your ultimate is up at level 6, and once you grab the Sanguine Blade. For the runes on Nocturne, you can either go with the Electrocute or you can go with the Lethal Tempo. If you're up against a very squishy mid lane champion and you can just one-shot them, then I would go for the Electrocute. But if you're up against a champion who might be stacking a little bit of HP there, if you do want more consistent damage coming out of your auto attacks, then the Lethal Tempo is going to be a fine option as well. And then for the Katarina and the Rumble, very good picks in the current meta. You're going to find yourself getting into a lot of early to mid game skirmishes around dragons. So once you do get your Gunblade on Katarina, once you grab your Liandry's on Rumble, you do have the ability to team fight and to skirmish really well around those objectives. So for the Talon, the Fizz, and the Ahri, they've all been S tier for multiple patches in a row now. Nothing has really changed for them in this patch, so they're still great picks to play in solo queue. For some honorable mentions there, the Aurelion Sol, the Kassadin, and the Cassiopeia are all very good picks right now with the new Conquer and with the new Presence of Mind. Now, if this were last patch, if Conquer did not get nerfed in this patch, then I would have Kassadin in S tier. I'd probably have Aurelion Sol in S tier as well, and maybe even Cassiopeia, but because Conquer did get nerfed, especially for ranged champions in this patch, they are a little bit weaker, the Aurelion Sol and the Cassiopeia there, but they're still very good picks with the Conquer. It didn't get nerfed to the point to where I think you shouldn't be taking it on these champions. I still think it is their #1 rune for this patch, especially because the new Presence of Mind is really good for those 3 champions. Both Zed and Malzahar are going to be honorable mentions for this patch, so the Nocturne pick there and the Katarina pick are going to be replacing them, and I think that the Malz pick right now is still a great pick, especially for the lower elos, but he doesn't have the ability to get early priority in a lot of matchups. He doesn't have the best skirmish until he does hit level 6, so you're going to be coin flipping a lot of your early games on Malzahar, and I just don't think that's the best way for you to win consistently right now in this meta. For the Zed pick there, I just think that if you want to play an AD assassin, then the Nocturne and the Talon are outclassing him a little bit for 9.24. So moving down to the bot lane now, first taking a look at AD carry, the S tier is going to be pretty similar as to where it was a couple patches back when I did one of these videos. You still got Jinx, Caitlyn, Jhin, Ashe, Miss Fortune, all very good picks still. The Heimerdinger is going to be moving up into S tier though. I think he's been an S tier pick or a borderline S tier pick for multiple patches in a row now. It's just that he isn't played a ton. He's a pretty niche pick. You see him a lot more in the higher elos, and I think that he's even a really good pick in the lower elos too. He's a pretty easy to play champion. You're going to win lane a lot of the time on the pick. You're going to be shoving the enemy under tower a lot of games, so especially in the lower elos to where AD carries do have a much more difficult time farming under tower, you're going to be able to deny the enemy a lot of farm in the early game, a lot of gold by playing this Heimerdinger pick and just shoving them under tower. For Caitlyn and for Jhin, they were two of the biggest winners from the preseason changes because they do really good with the new Stormrazor item. It's slotting in perfectly as a second item on both those two AD carries, so they pretty much have the same identical build path for this patch. You still want to go Infinity Edge first, but grab the Stormrazor second, and then either a Static Shiv or a Rapid Fire Cannon as your third item, and you're going to have a really nice 2 and 3 item spikes on both those AD carries. And then for some honorable mentions there, the Draven, the Senna, the Kai'Sa, and the Vayne. The Senna would have been S tier if I did a video like this last patch, but because of the nerf she did receive in 9.24 here, she is going to be dropping down and she is going to be an honorable mention. So not as OP as she was in previous patches. She was just pretty broken last patch, but with the nerf she received right now, she's no longer that pick or ban AD carry and support. The Kai'Sa and the Vayne, very good scaling AD carries, probably the best scaling AD carries out of any ones on this list here, but they do not have very good early games and you can get exploited pretty hard in the early to mid game there, so they're more riskier picks for sure. They're a little bit more coin flip AD carries, which is the reason to why they aren't in the S tier. And then to round it out here down in the support role, the support meta has stayed pretty much the same even with the preseason changes. So the builds for certain supports have changed up a little bit here in the preseason, but the champs that were strong before the big preseason patch are pretty much all still strong here in patch 9.24. So the Blitz, the Leona, the Nautilus, all very good aggro supports, all have the ability to snowball really good and are great for the current meta. The Shaco support pick there, if you can play it well, is one of the most annoying supports in the game to play against, and it's one of the strongest supports for the meta right now. So if you haven't played Shaco, if you haven't tried him out down in the support role, if you want to learn a new support pick, then Shaco is definitely something I would consider looking into. With the Janna and the Soraka, they're not going to blow you out of the water in terms of being able to just snowball hard in the early game, but they're picks that are always going to be pretty consistent. You're always going to have great peel with the Janna in mid to late game fights with your ultimate, with your Q. With the Soraka, you got your ultimate, you got your AoE heals with that, you also got your heals with your W, so you're always going to be useful in mid to late game team fights. So with these two champions, they do lack that raw solo carry potential a little bit, but they kind of make up for that by scaling really well into the late game and always being useful no matter what ends up happening. And then for the honorable mentions there, not too much has changed. The Senna pick there is going to be an honorable mention. Like I was saying when I was talking about Senna AD carry, if this were last patch, Senna would have been S tier for sure, but because of the nerf she did receive in patch 9.24, she is going to be dropping down to honorable mentions. So that is going to be it, guys. That's going to round out this video. Those are the strongest champions right now that you can play for every single role for patch 9.24. So hopefully you did find this video helpful. If you did, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.